Alright Bucketheads, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the Analogue 3D. Now what is an Analogue 3D? Well, and I quote, a reimagining of the N64 in 4K resolution, 10 times the resolution of the original Nintendo 64. The first and perhaps greatest multiplayer system of all time. Analogue 3D is 100% compatible with every original Nintendo 64 game ever made. Region-free, Bluetooth LE, dual-band Wi-Fi, 4 original style controller ports, entirely new next-generation analog hardware featuring 3D, some weird symbols, engineered entirely in FPGA, no emulation. Now looking at the introduction of the Analogue 3D here, I can only assume that they are aiming to give the consumer the best possible Nintendo 64 experience ever, which on paper seems like a really good thing, right? Because the Nintendo 64, it's an old console, and maybe you want to play Nintendo 64 games on your TV with original cartridges on original hardware. But where the problems start to arise here is when we look at the pricing of the Analogue 3D. It is $250 for what is basically just a Nintendo 64 with HDMI compatibility. And on top of the $250 price tag, it's going to have $30 shipping. My brother in Christ, an item that cost almost $300 in and of itself should not have a $30 shipping cost. So if we do the math here and add up the shipping cost and what tax would be, after all of that, you're going to get somewhere around $300. Right here in the great state of North Carolina, it would come out to $297.50. And at $300, I'm really hard pressed to see who this product is actually really for. I mean, realistically, who's going to be spending $300 on what is essentially a Nintendo 64 with an HDMI port? Some would probably argue that this is for the younger generation to experience the Nintendo 64 in a more modern and consumer-friendly way, but for the same price, you can buy a used Xbox Series S, put it in developer mode, and then buy Game Pass for all around $330 and emulate Nintendo 64 that way, and then on top of that, you also get a litany of other games that come with Game Pass. And I really wouldn't think this is for collectors either, because I would think that a collector of Nintendo 64 games, somebody that wants to play Nintendo 64 games via an actual cartridge, would want to experience it on a Nintendo 64 on a CRT TV. There's so many people out there, so many Nintendo 64 purists, they're going to tell you that's the best way to experience the console. I think those people are virgins, but you know, to each their own. And you can do that all for less than $300, plus also get Nintendo 64 games. Like, if you really wanted to play Nintendo 64 on a modern TV, you can buy a Nintendo 64 bundle, which I found one right here for $160. Comes with 6 games, 2 controller packs, a memory card for $160, and then over here on Amazon, you can buy an HDMI converter for your Nintendo 64 for $23-ish. Now, some might say that this is not going to be as good of quality as 4K resolution on the Nintendo 64, which those people would be right, but then again, it's a Nintendo 64 game. All of those games already look like paper mache graphics, so like, who really cares? At some point, it's just putting lipstick on a pig, and you're not going to make it look any better. What's funny is down here in the description of the Analogue 3D, they talk about how it's perhaps the greatest multiplayer system of all time. The funniest thing about that is it doesn't come with a controller, so you're spending $300 on a console without any controllers. Now, if you went the route of buying a Nintendo 64 bundle, you're going to get 2 controllers here, or if you buy a used Series S, you're going to get a controller with any of those for less than $300. So again, it's just like, who is this product for? Like, I can't stress that enough. $300 for a console without a fucking controller is absolutely asinine. But don't worry, 8BitDo has you covered, because they do offer a controller for the Analogue 3D. They are offering a controller that you can buy in tandem with the Analogue 3D, and that's this 8BitDo controller, which, don't get me wrong, I've heard nothing but phenomenal things about the 8BitDo, but that's going to be an additional $40 before tax. So it's going to come out to $350 if you want a console with one controller when they're advertising it as a multiplayer system. So if you want to play 2-player games on your $300 console, you're going to have to spend an extra $80 on 2 controllers, coming out to almost $400 fucking dollars. And then you have to have Nintendo 64 games on top of that, or you have to already have Nintendo 64 games, which if you already have Nintendo 64 games, I reckon you already have a Nintendo 64 to play those on and several controllers. So again, it just all boils down to like, who's buying this? Or alternatively, you could skip all of that, not spend $400 on an Analogue 3D, and you can buy a Steam Deck for around $300, which is going to be able to emulate everything from NES to even like Xbox 360 for around $300. And on top of that, with the leftover $100 that you're not spending on 2 Nintendo 64 controllers, you can buy Steam games and play PC games on your Steam Deck. Or if you already have a PC or a phone, most likely that's going to be capable of running Nintendo 64 games. The most bogus thing about this entire product, though, is if you look anywhere on this product page, there is absolutely zero gameplay available from the Analogue 3D. So they must be really confident that this is going to be the superior, the definitive Nintendo 64 version. But I would hope for $360 after buying a controller with it, that you would at least show a little bit of gameplay. Maybe some Ocarina of Time, maybe some Majora's Mask, maybe some Super Mario 64. But no, all you get is this picture of a Nintendo 64 that comes with a 16GB SD card pre-installed. What is the SD card for? Is it a stand-in for the memory pack? I don't know. Is it so you can emulate games? I don't know. If you're going to emulate games on your $350 Nintendo 64, why not just emulate those on your PC? Why not just emulate those on your Steam Deck? Why not just emulate those on your phone? There's so many questions that I have about this product. At the end of the day, it's just more economical to buy a low-end PC or a Steam Deck or an Xbox Series S than to buy this HDMI compatible Nintendo 64, and then on top of that, the controllers that go with it. Now, you may have heard of Analogue before because a couple years back they released an item called the Analogue Pocket, which was kind of held as the definitive way to play original Game Boy games. Now, I did a little perusing on Plebit, and I found a lot of first-hand experiences with the Analogue Pocket on Reddit. There's this one guy right here that says, "I loved my Pocket for about 3 weeks. Then my full Pokédex save got deleted." And there's 3 updates on that post, and then another guy corroborating the same thing. So they have a history with really faulty software. Okay, saying really faulty is a bit of a stretch, but faulty software nonetheless. I mean, this whole Reddit thread is just people talking about how, like, the software of the Analogue Pocket isn't up to par for a device that was almost $300. So why should I have any confidence in a $300 console without a controller, without any gameplay attached to it? I don't know, maybe I'm just looking too far into this. Maybe I'm just broke coping. I don't know. Tell me your thoughts about the Analogue 3D in the comments section below. Without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe this video for a billion jillion gamer girlfriends or something. I don't know. If you're gay, you get boyfriends. I'm gonna stop e-begging now.